Hi everyone, in this video, let's convert this UI design into HTML and CSS. Okay, and so this is what we are going to build. Okay, so if you look at it, we will be starting with a container with a border radius, and it'll have a linear background which goes from bottom left corner to top right corner. It'll also have three circles positioned in absolute way, which is by using position absolute. Um, all the three circles are also having linear gradient background color. And finally, we will have the main container, which will have a blur effect to give a glass morphism effect, which will then have a text and a line at the center. And the text will have a web stroke, a text stroke, and we will then conclude with a block at the end of the container with this text of class morphism. And of course it has, if you look at it, a bit of shadow for which we will be using box shadow. And we would be using couple of fonts from Google Fonts. One is Scala and the other one is Poppins. You can, you know, choose the weights and the types that you want using embed code option from here. And of course, for the linear background, I'll be using csgradient.io, in which you can define your background, including the stops, like so. And you can quickly then copy this CSS. So we have a HTML and a CSS page. And this is the title, and then I have linked this style.css here, and this is our CSS file. So first of all, let's set the margin of HTML and the body to 0, and let's import the Google fonts, and we have Poppins and Carla of font weight of 900 and 800. I'll just move this all the way up. Now let's add a div called container. Let's style this container now. So we give a width of 450, height of 600 with a linear background, which goes from bottom left to top right, like that. And we also have defined the stops. It also has a border radius of 30 pixels. Let's also define a style for the body to center the container. So we can define the display as flex, justify content as center. So you see horizontally it's in the center, and then align items in the center as well, so that vertically it aligns in the center. We also need to give a height of 100% view height, so that it takes entire height, after which this property is going to work just like that. Now let's add three circles and call it as circle 1, 2 and 3. Let's style these circles now. Let's start with circle 1. So it's going to have a width and height of 150 and a background of linear gradient. And to make it circle, we can just set the border radius as 50%. Now let's move the circle somewhere here so that we can give top and left properties. Let's give top of 40 and left of 60 pixels. As you can see, there's no effect. That's because we need to position this circle as absolute. Okay, and if you look at the circle, it's positioning with respect to the main body. We don't want that. We want the circle to position within this divs container, and for that we need to go to the container and say that the positioning should be relative to this container, which means it should take the left and top property values from the container's position. So if you save this now if you see, the top of 40 is this and left of 60 is this. Now similarly, we can add two more circles with similar concept, but only difference is the size is going to vary and the background color is going to vary, of course including their positionings. So if we save this, we are going to see these three circles. Now let's add the glossy container and call it as content. Let's give it some style. So I've given a width of 225, height of 425. There's a background or transparent white background. It has a border radius of 15. And if you see, it also has a very mild box shadow effect. Now let's center this content within the container's center, and for that we can go to the container, set display as flex, justify content as center, and align item as center. So you see it's in the middle now, and if you see, the circles are above or in front of the content, and if we want to move the circles behind, we can just set the z index of the content to 1. You see, now it's in the front. And to give that glossy effect, we can set the backdrop filter and set it to about 30 pixels, and that's going to give us this required effect. You can play around with these numbers until you feel you get the desired effect. It need not be too high or low, it just needs to be just about right, and I believe 30 in this case is a right number. Now let's give the center heading in within the content section and call it as heading, and inside that let's give a paragraph and say hello. You see that. Let's style and call this as outlined text. Let's style this in the CSS. So we'll set the font to Poppins, and we give a font size about 42 pixels, and color is transparent, and we give a text stroke, which is this outline of 1 pixel with a transparent white color, and we also have the letter spacing to adjust the spacing between the letters. So if you give it as 0, you'll have more space, and if you make it negative, it's going to be closer, the letters will be closer to each other, just like that. And if you remove these two, it's going to give you regular filled text, and if we just want the outline, and this is what we use. And of course, since we are using P element, it'll have a default margin, and if we don't want that margin, we can set the margin as 0, and it's going to remove both top and bottom margin for this. Now let's add a line below this text and call it as ruler, and we can style this ruler. So in this, since we want a very thin line, I'm going to set the height to 0, and I'm just going to give a border top of 1 pixel with a semi-transparent white color. Okay, just like that. And we want the width to be about 50% or a little more, and we can set it to 75%. Yeah, just like that. If you see, there's a spacing between the text and the line. We want to reduce that, and for that we can give a margin top of maybe 0, or we can even set it to negative, and it's going to move up. Now let's align this in the middle of the content, and for that we can go to, let's give a bit of background to this section. And okay, this is the heading section, and we can now go to content and set the display to flex and flex direction as column, so that the children are stacked from top to bottom. If the flex direction is row, the children are stacked from left to right. We can also give justify content as center, and then align item as center. You see, it's right in the middle. Okay, now probably we can remove this guide. Let's probably increase the width, that's 100, and maybe we can set it to 150. Since we want this line to be at the center, we can also set alignment style for the heading, and we can set display to flex again, flex direction as column, just in center, and align item as center. Okay, so it's going to align in the middle. Actually, you may not need justify content, since we are aligning from left to right. I think, yeah, align item center should just be sufficient. And finally, let's add the last section, which is the bottom section, which displays class morphism as the text. And let's wrap it within this div called class. And okay, and let's give this a style, call it as label class. Now let's style the class, and so there's a transparent background again, with a padding of horizontal and vertical, width of about 75%, and the border radius of 15, and it also has a mild box shadow effect. And if you take it out, you're going to see that there's no box shadow, and if you add it back, see there's a very mild shadow effect. Now we want to position this block at the end, and how we can do that is we can position it as absolute by setting the position property to absolute. But for this to work, we need to ensure the parent of this is set to relative. So parent of class is content, and in content we can set the position as relative, so that this block respects the top and bottom or left or right properties of this content div. So if I save it right now, it is in the center because we have given the contents display as flex, align content is center, align item is center. Now if you want to move it at the bottom, you can give as bottom 0, and it's going to be right at the bottom. And since we need a little gap between the edge and the block, we can give a bottom of 15 pixel so that we have this space. And finally, let's give the style to this text. We can grab this class name. So we are setting it the font size of 18, font family is set to Carla, and the color is white, like that. And if you see design, the height of this label is shrunk a little, and we can get that effect using transform, and we can scale Y, which is vertical, and we can scale it by about zero point 0.5. It's going to shrink the height, or we can maybe increase a little. Yeah, this looks just about right. We also have the morphism below the word glass, and for that we can simply set the width to about 50% so that the text gets wrapped and comes below this first word. If you see, we also have a bit of margin on top and bottom because we have used p element, and to remove that, just set the margin to 0. Let me know what you think of this design in the comment section below. Stay tuned for more. Subscribe. Cheers.